Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It is week 3 in the NFL. This is Full Press NFL Sunday, and we are rocking and rolling the last weekend of September. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Is it yeah, it is. Well, next weekend it's split. Saturday is September, Sunday is October. So technically, this is the last Sunday in September for the NFL, and I love October. It's my favorite month of the year for many reasons. Many reasons. The least of which is, we get great football. Mostly it's Halloween. I love Halloween. So, anyways, we are obviously, like I said, rocking and rolling. Coming into the week, we already had one contest. The Giants did not win. However, they kept it somewhat competitive early on, but San Francisco did what they did to move to 3-0. Just looking like one of the two best teams, at least in the NFC. And really, Braden, there's nothing right now aside from injuries that looks like that's going to slow the San Francisco team down. Dallas suffered a pretty devastating injury on defense at practice this week with Trayvon Diggs going down for the season. It's not the worst thing for them. It's not Micah Parsons. And they still have Stephon Gilmore to kind of, shoulder some of the load, although he's a little bit older. But this looks like a season San Francisco just needs to stay healthy, and they could very easily be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was definitely not even the night that Brock Purdy, not one of his better starts anyway, from what we've seen so far. So it was one of those games you kind of just see how deep this roster obviously is with San Francisco. Christian McCaffrey, just kind of in a zone right now that just seems like he's unstoppable, and one of the rare running backs right now that is just kind of be able to be counted on in any moment, just kind of consistently from one of the top paid guys anyway. So no Brandon Ayuk either. It was a really pedestrian offensive night, but Daniel Jones, not a lot of help for him. He had to kind of get the ball out quickly a lot in that game. Didn't really see him run as much as maybe what I thought we would see in that game. But yeah, it was just one of those games that slowly but surely the Niners defense just kind of took over and kind of suffocated the Giants enough, and really made it a tough game for the Giants offensive line, obviously dealing with injuries there. So I don't think I'd put a lot of this loss on Daniel Jones, but it's definitely been a start that not a lot of Giants fans were hoping for after that huge contract.
Yeah, and look, I mean, relative to what we saw in week 1, it was not terrible on Thursday. I mean, I don't think too many people expected the Giants to win, even if they were playing better, because, well, for San Francisco, they're just, I mean, again, healthy, they're kind of a juggernaut here. But yeah, same thing. You shell out a big contract, and so far, big contracts really haven't paid off in the early parts of this season so far. And look, it's because it's early. Like, do we think Joe Burrow is going to average 120 yards a game their whole season? No. Well, if he needs to get healthy, let's put it that way. So it may suffer because of this injury that may or may not kind of linger throughout the season. But the reality of it is eventually he's going to start playing up to snuff. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, I don't think people expected him to fulfill every expectation of that contract, but I think they expected at least a certain high level of play that he's going to have to give going forward. And like you said, it wasn't necessarily his fault. He wasn't bad. He wasn't great. It's just you don't have Saquon Barkley. You don't have your left tackle. It's a difficult task against a very tough San Francisco team. And considering they lost 40-0 on opening night, it's kind of a pretty big improvement, I would say. But anyways, we mentioned Trayvon Diggs obviously going down, blowing out the ACL. Kind of good news on Bradley Chubb is that he surprisingly only tore his MCL, which, I mean, if anyone's seen that video, unfortunately, I've only seen it once, and I don't need to see it again. You probably figured that the whole package was completely blown out, and this is obviously good news. I mean, it's still a long recovery, and he may or may not ever play the same again. But from a long-term impact, the good thing is he didn't blow out every CL in that knee. So
Yeah, and I think it was the same knee that he injured at Georgia in his college career. So I was really kind of worried to kind of see what the full result was of that. We'll see, I guess, what else maybe they find, if anything, in surgery. But yeah, for it to only be MCL, I think that's obviously way better than anyone could have expected. It was just something I've never seen before, where especially in a division rivalry game like that, the opposing fans in their own stadium just shocked, and the noises that we heard from the crowd, when the play happened. I don't think I've ever seen that before. So hopefully he recovers as quick as possible, and we'll see how he does when he's able to return to the field. But yeah, definitely a better outcome than I think a lot of people expected, for sure.
yeah, I mean that obviously the play gives you flashbacks to Willis McGahee back in the day when he was at Miami. Um, uh, I guess coincidentally, I think Cleveland fans have seen that before. Only it was excuse me, the opposing team that it was happening to, because that was it was the Patriots versus the Browns the day that Rob Gronkowski got his knee blown out
Mhm.
by TJ Ward. And again, I mean, we can have these discussions about dirty play, this, that, and the other, but I don't think there's a right answer to that. Because again, defenders are kind of backed into the corner on how they're supposed to attack and approach tackling in certain aspects. And I still think we're in an era of transition. So I think you're not, I mean, 10, 15 years from now, through years of training from youth all the way up until the pros, you're going to have better techniques. There's going to be things that kids learn that they didn't learn when the pros that are playing now. So it's going to get better. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer about dirty play. Now you can look at individual players and their history, I think, and make a determination whether or not you think they're a dirty player based on their reputation. But going low on a player, I'm not gonna completely chalk that up as to, oh, that's dirty. It's like, no, sometimes what are the defenders are supposed to do? They're not supposed to hit them high. They're not supposed to hit them low. Like, let's use our head here and try to figure it out. But either way, it's just an unfortunate situation, and good thing for Bradley Chubb that it wasn't every one of those ligaments in his knee, and hopefully it does lead to him getting back there on the field. So uh, obviously today we got a lot of games coming up, a lot of pretty intriguing games actually. But I do want to, before we like we do every single week, we'll make our picks and everything like that. I do want to talk about the NFC South for a minute, because after 2 weeks, you have three teams right now that are 2-0, and you got the Bucks, the Saints, and the Falcons. And I think we probably talked before the season and said, "Oh, this is a division that 8 or 9 wins can probably win it for you." Like, all these teams are kind of in transition. They got some decent quarterbacks, but it's nothing too special. Well, silly us, three teams, 2-0, and looking like one of the better divisions, quote unquote, in the NFC South. So I guess I'll ask you, of those three teams, the Bucks, the Saints, and the Falcons, most impressed with anyone in particular, and do you think it's legit? Like, some people have been quietly saying, keep an eye on the Falcons, keep an eye on the Falcons, and they've quietly gone about their business. So are you buying or selling any one of these teams in this division long term?
Yeah, I think the Falcons probably is the one that I would be willing to buy the most, I guess, of the ones that maybe are more surprising. I think the Saints was kind of one that I bought into a little bit more, but I think the biggest question that I had was Desmond Ritter going into the season, kind of reserving my judgment overall on him. But I think just the way Arthur Smith's kind of backed him and kind of put a lot of trust in him has been impressive to see. And he's not always going to be counted on to make the big plays. They still used the ground and pound game last week when they were down in the fourth quarter against Green Bay. But I think the Falcons are the one that I thought there was maybe some potential, but I just didn't know if they'd fully reach it this year. So That's probably out of all three, the one that I would be willing to buy into the most. I think they did a good job. I think kind of getting a new cast of defenders there. Obviously, new defensive coordinator coming over from New Orleans. So I think this is a much tougher team than we've seen in the past. Falcons, always known for blowing those leads and not being able to finish games. I think they just have a style right now that it's going to be a tough out every week. Going to be a really competitive game and I think there's just a lot of pieces that they can count on. You don't have to have a lot of young guys on this team right now go out and necessarily be playing elite or being stars necessarily every week. So I think they've done a good job kind of building a balanced team, both offense and defense. And I think if in terms of playoffs, that's probably out of all three the one that I'd be a little bit more willing to buy into now than I was maybe originally.
Yeah, and look, I think you look at the Saints, and they upgraded at quarterback, but I think Derek Carr adds obviously more stability, and I think Michael Thomas has surprisingly played well. And I'm not saying I doubted his skill, but obviously he's played like one game in 3 years. It seems like he's been more of a social media guy than a football player. It seems the last couple of years. So his reemergence, so to speak, is obviously going to be great for this Saints team, and I do think Derek Carr brings a little bit more stability, but it's still Derek Carr, and he's still going to throw some backbreaking interceptions and make some poor plays and poor decisions that really put his team up against the wall, and that's kind of his MO. And it is what it is. Not every quarterback can be great or elite. So I think long term wise, yeah, I might agree with you, because I'm still honestly I'm still puzzled about what this Bucks team is like. Obviously, I don't think they upgraded at quarterback, but I think their offensive philosophy these first 2 weeks are night and day compared to what it was last season, where I just thought they were just hampered by disorganization. Donovan Smith, which again, see how it plays out, but there's going to be a lot of moments this season, Chiefs fans, where you're like, wow, that was a huge play. Of course, Donovan Smith got a holding call on that play. So trust me,
I
that's
think
going to
there was
happen.
one last week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Trust me. Whenever there is a big play to be negated, Donovan Smith is going to be there for you. And those were the issues the Bucks went through last year, on top of like horribly predictable play calling. And so far through the first couple of weeks, we've seen their offensive philosophy do the exact opposite. They're adjusting. They're attacking defenses a little bit different. But this week will obviously be, I think, a big tell for who the Bucks are against the Eagles. They don't have to win this game, but they can kind of say, okay, no, these first couple weeks aren't necessarily a fluke. We're a better team than most people think, and well, hell, Mike Evans is playing for a contract right now, so maybe he's the one who gets to 2,000 yards and not Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and it's probably the best set of weapons that Baker Mayfield's probably had in his career to this point as well. I don't think the Cleveland days. Obviously, Odell Beckham was there, but it was kind of a watered down version of what we saw with the Giants. So I think overall this is probably still the best set of weapons he's had, and for the most part the Bucks defense. They've started out the year hot. I know it hasn't been the best of offenses that they're facing so far, but it'll be interesting to see how they do against the Eagles offense that's still kind of trying to find their footing a little bit to start the year on Monday night.
Yeah, and word has it they're going to have Rondé Barber in the house, and there's a little history between the Bucks and the Eagles when it comes to NFC playoff games. So yeah, look, this is better than it being a pushover division and something that you kind of just like look at and you're like, oh my god, it's an NFC South team. No, you're looking at these teams and you're like, wow, and they might be starting to turn some heads soon. So so yeah, it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how it plays out. And like I said, I want to see what the Bucks do against the Eagles, and then you have Green Bay and the Saints going this afternoon. Green Bay obviously coming off a pretty devastating loss that they probably shouldn't have had, but it is what it is. Anyways, the ironic thing though is We talk about the AFC North a lot. That looks like it might be the exact opposite in terms of disappointing, certainly based on what they started. Now, again, like I said, I mean, I expect Joe Burrow and the Bengals to pick up the slack eventually. The problem is, though, it might be too little too late for them because, like, look, we talk about that number one seed all the time. Well, there's only one bye week now. So, again, that's a lot more important than it's ever been when you used to have two teams that had the bye week. And I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it really makes a huge difference, especially for that one team that gets that bye week. So the Bengals are already obviously playing with two hands tied behind their back. They're fortunate that the Chiefs have already lost at least one game, but they also have a stretch of 4 or 5 games where the combined record right now of their opponents is 1-11.
Right.
So you got to figure the Bengals don't really have that much margin for error. I think the Steelers' preseason hype obviously has already deflated a little bit, and the Browns. Look, I don't think that they're that good. And their best player, Bradley Chubb, on offense, is gone because I don't think that highly of Deshaun Watson. So I think this is going to be a struggle. So now we're looking at the AFC North and saying, okay, maybe this is the team. Maybe it's not necessarily because I think the Ravens are really good. And like I said, the Bengals, I think, will eventually get going again. But you're looking at the AFC North and saying, wow, this is actually kind of underwhelming a little bit at this point through the season.
Yeah, I think the Steelers, it's really interesting because you've seen the loyalty that Mike Tomlin's had with Matt Canada, an offensive coordinator, and they're really in a tough spot there because obviously even if they kind of make some strides offensively, but it's not good enough by the end of the season. You're going into Kenny Pickett's third year next year, with him still kind of having to learn a new offense and still being a young quarterback when this team feels like they have the pieces at least to be somewhat competitive in the postseason. So it's kind of a tough balancing act that Tomlin's been so loyal to his guys for so long, and I think that's just the only thing that is on Steelers fans' minds right now is how much longer is Kenny Pickett going to have Matt Canada as his OC and from what we've seen, I don't think Pickett necessarily thinks he's handcuffed so to speak with Canada. It seems like he doesn't mind him, but it's just it's kind of a weird cycle that they keep kind of going into. And of course, you have the injury right now to Deontay Johnson, so one of his top weapons is out. But I think it's just it's a really tough spot that Pittsburgh's in with a young quarterback, and I don't know if we'll see a change during the season, but it seems like that noise is going to just continue to get louder and louder as the season goes on.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's Pittsburgh, so there's a lot of pressure and expectations. Eventually, I mean, they don't want to see just Mike Tomlin over a 500 record again. No, they want to see playoff success. They want to see legitimate opportunities to contend for Super Bowls, and they just haven't done that. And you look at their defense and some of the players that they have on it, and you're like, wow, this team should be competing for a Super Bowl. But then again, that's if you still believe that defense wins championships. And I'm sorry, it's been almost 2 decades. It's getting there, but it's offense. It's an offensive game. It's been an offensive game for a long time, and that's always been the most important thing. But obviously, having if you're employed with a defense like the Steelers, then well, guess what? It certainly helps you out. But the reality of it is the Steelers aren't going to be nothing more than just a middling team with a great defense until they get better on offense, and it just hasn't happened. So, all right, let's do our week 3 picks already. I mean, I can't believe we're already in week 3. I think I did a little bit better last week. Still not great. My fantasy team did not. I'm now 1-1. So the elation and excitement of that first week victory has gone out the window, but it's okay. I think I'm going to rebound this week. Hopefully, I need Travis Kelce to have himself a pretty big game, and then I can feel a little bit better because unfortunately I went up against Christian McCaffrey. So yeah, it's tough. It's every week with something. But anyways, let's get into it. Week 3. Let's do our picks. Ravens hosting the Colts. We're going to kick this off in Baltimore. battle of two franchises very closely connected to the Colts name. Baltimore, obviously, from way back when. But I like Baltimore in this one. Like I said, I've Baltimore's quietly going about their business. They haven't, flashed big time. This isn't Lamar Jackson of 2019, but he's playing very good football. I think this Ravens offense has played well and the defense has played well. And really the only stable team right now in the AFC North. So give me the Ravens in this one.
Yeah, give me the Ravens as well. A lot of injuries. Baltimore's got a lot of guys out. Of course, no Anthony Richardson for the Colts, so it's gonna probably be maybe a little bit less explosive day than what this game could have been. But yeah, I like the Ravens as well. It just seems like they're really finding their footing with kind of the deep passing game. Zay Flowers has had a good start, so I think that'll continue today against kind of this younger Colts secondary. So give me the Ravens.
Yeah, don't write off the new Ryan Fitzpatrick and Gardner Minshew. I'm just saying. He's this era's Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he's going to play for pretty much half the teams in the league, and he's always going to be able to give you the potential of a very, very solid big game, like he did when he came in last week. I mean,
Right.
he played very well when he came in last week. Now, much like Ryan Fitzpatrick, there's only so much. Like with Ryan, it was always like, okay, he's going to give you a few, but eventually, it's like getting to the second or third, part of the rotate, through the rotation. Like you
Right.
start to pick up tells, and yeah, it's just not enough. So great for coming in temporarily, winning a couple games, absolutely. So yeah, maybe we'll get this. Maybe we'll get a nice little Gardner Minshew run that will get some team to overpay him in the offseason. Anyways, Miami hosting the Broncos. I like the Dolphins in this one. I think they, solid game, obviously, against the Patriots to win that one. Tyreek Hill was neutralized for the most part, but Dolphins did a really good job running the ball. And I like Denver's defense, but really the offense, it's shown flashes. There's been a few moments where you're like, oh, that kind of looks like, that Seahawks offense from before, and then they still can't score over 21 points somehow. But anyways, I'll take the Dolphins.
Yeah, I like the Dolphins as well. You mentioned the offense. It's just been a lot of seems like consistently checking the ball down, not really testing opponents deep, and I don't think that's going to help against the Dolphins pass rush what they got going there. So I like the Dolphins to kind of win this game pretty handily. I think this is just on paper the style of play the Dolphins have. I just don't think Denver matches up very well, at least this early in the season with the coaching and regime change. So I'll go with Miami.
Next, we have the Jets hosting the Patriots, and obviously both teams a long history, but the Patriots have won 14 straight against them, and I think they win 15 straight. The Patriots team, if you're a fan, it's frustrating to watch because they do things like 75% well, and then it just kind of all falls apart at the end. They can't finish drives, they can't close games out. And it always feels like one or two big mistakes unraveled this entire team. But on the flip side, it's the New York Jets and it's Zach Wilson, and the Patriots just don't lose to this team. So I don't think it starts today. I don't think it starts for a while. So give me the Patriots, and I think they show up today. So give me comfortably the Patriots.
Yeah, Patriots as well for me. You mentioned just the winning streak, but also just Zach Wilson. I mean, doesn't seem like he's been able to really even get a lot of drives into plus territory against the Patriots in his 4 games against New England. So it's something that I don't really see changing today. And I also just can't envision New England starting 0-3 when I kind of thought they were going to be competitive most of this season. So I think this is a game that the Patriots are hopefully able to figure out some things offensively, even against a tough defense. So give me the Patriots.
Next, we have Jacksonville hosting Houston, and credit to the Chiefs, but I was very disappointed in Jacksonville last week, especially the offense. They had several opportunities in the red zone. Trevor Lawrence looked pedestrian at best, certainly down in the red area, and that's a big issue. Obviously, it gets more difficult when you get down to the red zone for the most part. But if you're not coming through, they had opportunities, and we can sit here and say, oh well, if a couple receivers just were able to drag their feet a little bit better, we're talking something completely different. But those are the little things that separate great teams and, contenders from pretenders. And right now, I keep looking at Jacksonville. It's like, okay, they're getting a lot of hype and running out of excuses. So disappointing show out against Kansas City last week. Against Houston, I think they're going to win, but I think it's very important that they go out and really look like the class of that division and not play down to their opponent. Because if they play down again, then I'm just going to say, you know what, forget about Jacksonville. I don't believe in Jacksonville until they do something, and right now they haven't done it. So I do take them today. I think they'll win, but important game. They need to win this one comfortably.
Yeah, and it's usually a coach that I think usually makes some pretty good decisions for the most part. And Doug Peterson, I think there was definitely some moments that he kind of put his team in some bad spots last week as well. The fourth down, in Kansas City territory when they were already up 3-0. Chiefs offense was kind of sputtering still at that point. So it's something that I think you got to be careful with against this Houston team. I could see this game maybe being a little closer than some expect, but it's just still a young Houston team. I think they're still in the process of figuring some things out. So I like the Jaguars to win today, but maybe not as convincing as some people think.
All right, next we have Cleveland hosting Tennessee, and look, DeAndre Hopkins is going to play. He's relatively healthy, so that's good for Tennessee. I mean, I like Tennessee in this one because I guess I just don't like the Browns. That's really kind of all I have. I mean, Browns without Bradley Chubb, with a mediocre, overpaid quarterback, bad combination. I like Tennessee.
Yeah, this is a toss-up for me. I went with Cleveland just because I think they potentially maybe make a little more plays in the passing game than Tennessee today. I think you're still wanting to see the Titans receivers kind of get going a little bit more with Ryan Tannehill, at least this new group. So nothing would surprise me in this game, but I went with Browns just because of the offensive factor. I like their depth a little bit more. So Cleveland is where I'm going to go there.
Much like Jacksonville last week, I was very disappointed in what we saw from the Lions, coming off that big win against the Chiefs, having 10 days to prepare and kind of just not looking anything like a team that should be competing for a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't like them this week. I really don't at home against Atlanta. We just talked about Atlanta a few minutes ago. They're running the ball very well. They're playing very well, like just very balanced offensively. And so I don't know what to think of this Lions team. They go out and they have this great performance against the Chiefs. Was that their quote unquote Super Bowl? It might have been. It might have been. I mean, we've seen this a lot from teams, have not teams. And if there's no more have not team than the Detroit Lions. So to me, did they peak in week one? Well, maybe we'll find out, because if they come out here and put up a dud, I mean, they should be able to come out here as much as we like Atlanta. They should be able to come out here, play a pretty good game and win. If they don't, then I think there's going to be a lot of, panic alarms with Detroit, because last year was all great and all that they finished so strong, but if you do that again this year, it's still not going to do anything for you, and I think people are going to get frustrated. So I like Atlanta on the road against Detroit in this one.
Yeah, you're kind of making me almost want to switch my picks here with those, but I did go with the Lions. I still think they are probably better than Atlanta in the trenches. I think Aiden Hutchinson's his start the first two games is I think it'll be a big difference today. We've seen Desmond Ritter sometimes be a little bit late to pull the trigger at times, so maybe that's kind of the difference in this game. I think the trenches with Detroit, but yeah, it's one of those games that going to be a lot of running, a lot of ground and pound. I think it'll be a tight game. I think I want to still believe in the Lions that they should win this game. So I'm gonna just kind of bank on what I believe going into the season with Detroit. So I'll go Lions in this one.
All right, next we have Green Bay hosting New Orleans, and Green Bay obviously kind of blowing that late last week to they could have been 2-0. But the good thing for them, Jordan Love has looked pretty good the first couple games, back-to-back 3-touchdown, 300-yard games, which, again, something Aaron Rodgers hadn't done in 22 straight games is throw for 300 yards, which it's remarkable to think. But then you do think about it, you're like, oh, okay, no, that kind of makes sense. He was never there were seasons obviously where he compiled a lot of passing yards, but he wasn't really a high passing yards guy. He was a 3,900, 4,000 yards a season type of guy, not the the 44, 4,500 plus guy. So anyways, Jordan Love is now under center, and I think I think they not handle New Orleans. I do think New Orleans will give them a nice a nice little bit of a competition, because I'm not quite sure, but isn't Jari Alexander out, and they have some issues health
Yeah,
wise defensively. So
right.
Green Bay, that is. So I think New Orleans can certainly take advantage of that for a little bit. So give me the Packers, but I think this is going to be a pretty close game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think we're still wanting to see a little bit more from the Saints offense as well. So I think just given what we've seen from Green Bay's offense, even though they couldn't finish last week, it seemed like it was to me more coaching decisions than anything. They ran the ball three straight times, back-to-back drives in the fourth quarter. Didn't at least give Jordan Love an opportunity to kind of extend the lead and give them a chance to seal that one off. So I think if they kind of just go back to what they did week one, at least giving Jordan Love a lot of opportunities to, push the ball down the field a little bit. I think they'll be all right. I think the Saints offense starting slow is going to be kind of the difference in this one. So I'm going to go with the Packers.
Next, we have Washington hosting Buffalo. I like Buffalo in this one. I'll be, the evolution, so to speak, of Sam Howell and this offense under Eric Bieniemy, I think, is one of the more intriguing early storylines. Obviously, early returns are, well, this offense is certainly going to be better. They have talent, and again, Sam Howell's a guy that at one point in time was looked at as a potential number one overall pick. Obviously, fell fairly far considering where he was taken. But right now, look, they have a nice offense that can push the ball, and you got to kind of figure that throughout the season they're going to continue to do so. I don't think they win this game, but I do think they're going to give Buffalo kind of all that they can handle, especially Buffalo's defense, because like again, I think the biggest storyline when it comes to this Commanders team is this evolution of their offense, which has been downright pedestrian for, well, since like the 90s. So, yeah, I like I like Buffalo in this one, but I'm very intrigued at this matchup, and I think it's going to be a pretty close game, even though Buffalo's favored by 6.5 points, at least the last I saw.
Yeah, I'm pretty much right there with you. I like Buffalo to win. I do think it'll be tight though. I don't think this will be an easy game. It'll be interesting to see if Josh Allen can kind of avoid the turnovers. Washington's had a good start with their pass rush. I think this is a secondary that's at least taken some steps forward for the Commanders. Rookie Emmanuel Forbes has already made a lot of plays on the football. So I do think this will be a tough game, but I kind of like Buffalo's just experience, and I think they just got back to playing smart football for the most part last week. It seemed like just a lot of quick completions from Josh Allen. I think they'll try to continue that today. So I do think it'll be close. I think Washington could even cover as an underdog, but I'll go with the Bills to win somehow, some way.
Next, we have the Chargers heading to Minnesota in the battle of two teams that are pretty much the same exact thing, except one's in the AFC and one's in the NFC. And by that, I mean just empty success. It's all it is. It's a lot of hype. It's a lot of cool looking things, but ultimately, it's all surface. Minnesota last year, 11-0 in one score games. They're now 0-2 and very much look like essentially a mediocre team. I mean, look, these things balance out. I've never seen I just don't get it. I mean, Kirk Cousins has a really nice stat line last week, and they lose, and it's like you're puzzled because it's like, how do you figure this out? Like this is kind of the prime example of stats kind of sometimes are meaningless because they feel empty. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, great, Kirk Cousins, like do it. Like sometimes it's more about timing than volume too. And it's like quarterbacks doing the right thing at the right time. That's what matters more. It's not necessarily about who throws the most or who has the best looking passer rating or whatever. But anyways, I think the Chargers and the Vikings are kind of the same exact thing. They're overhyped. They underperform, and it's really kind of been the same thing for the last several years. So I'll take the Chargers though in this one because why the hell not? I don't know. Flip a coin. Give me the
Yeah.
Chargers.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. Flip the coin. It's two, defenses that seem to always just have the same mistakes. So they're very similar in that regard as well. I think there's going to be just a lot of explosive plays, a lot of points in this game. But I think we've seen at least the Chargers, come closer to finishing off those two losses a little bit more than the Vikings. I just think the Chargers have been maybe more self-inflicted wounds than anything. I think Minnesota, they're just totally incompetent right now in some areas. So I like the Chargers. It should be a fun game in terms of just the entertainment value, but yeah, who knows? It feels like an elimination game, especially for the Chargers if the AFC is as good as we think it'll be. But I think they'll find a way to win today. It's just it's hard to put a lot of faith in either side.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Seattle hosting Carolina. I took the Seahawks in this one. Carolina, obviously, the one team in the NFC South that doesn't have a win, 0-2. In Seattle, look, do I think they're a great team? No. Do I think they can be a nuisance for some teams? Absolutely. And I think in this case, they are better than Carolina right now. So I'm going to give them the edge at home, especially. So give me Seattle.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add to this one. I think what we've seen from Bryce Young so far. Andy Dalton playing at quarterback may not really be a big difference. I just think these Frank Reich teams. It seems like there's a lot of want to buy into some of the hype, but it just seems like his teams always kind of come out flat, and you can't do that against a Pete Carroll team, especially in Seattle. So I think Seahawks win pretty comfortably today.
Next, the Chiefs have a bye week in Chicago. No, I don't think there's any doubt that the Chiefs obviously win this game. Chicago's just not that good, and Justin Fields hasn't looked great. The biggest thing here, though, and this is an important game in the sense that you want to see the Chiefs offense kind of start working on all cylinders, and this is the type of game that even if they're sleepwalking at some point, they should be able to look like the Chiefs of old. I think their concern's not the word that I want to use, but I think there is this idea, and certainly something to keep an eye on, that yes, Travis Kelce is recovering from injury. So there's going to be times where maybe he's on a little bit of a snap count, but he's 34 years old. And I saw some people, maybe it was an overreaction, and it certainly could be, say that he kind of looked a little bit older out there. Maybe not. And look, this is just the difference of, it could be a second and a half in his quickness.
Right.
Little spurts here and there, things that like give him that ultimate advantage. And I think ultimately you want to see this Chiefs team who has, you know, I don't like using the word struggle because they're clearly still really good on offense, but it's a different offense. And I
Yeah.
think for the first time, this is a little bit different than losing Tyreek Hill, just Tyreek Hill. I think, you have a decent collection of players, but it's. I mean, I think of like the Patriots in 2018, where it's like
Mhm.
they had some, like Brandon LaFell was a nice player. Some of the, obviously Julian Edelman was there, but I mean these these receivers, they were nice players, but they don't have the game changing, game breaking ability that some other players in this league have. Now, it doesn't really matter because it ultimately comes down to your quarterback, and the Chiefs are pretty much set in that situation. But you do, I think, and you can speak as a Chiefs fan and someone who covers the team, you can speak and say like, hey, we need to see this team start to resemble more of that well-oiled machine. Maybe not to the exact preciseness as it was, but I think you want to see a little bit more this week. And if you don't, then I think you might start to be like, okay, Matt Nagy, we need to figure something out because, we're willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, but there's a lot of big changes that happen in Kansas City this offseason, and it's not easy to maintain this level of execution, and I think the Chiefs might, for the first time, start to have some of those speed bumps along the way. But long long-winded answer to say I like the Chiefs a lot in this game. I'm more concerned about watching this offense perform at a higher level than it has been. And I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you want to see that too, to give you a little bit better feeling moving forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, especially from the receivers, you kind of see this, especially early in the year. Sometimes just kind of more running to spots and not really being, self-aware of kind of where those soft spots are in between zones, or just when to find that soft area and sit down. So I think that's something that, hopefully, as time goes on, we see a little bit more just better instincts from the receivers. It'll be interesting to see who's out there. I think Kadarius Toney's expected to play. We'll see if he's ultimately out there. So if he's not out there, outside of MVS, Sky Moore, who had a decent game last week, he'll kind of be counted on. I think heavily against the Bears, I think it's just one of those games um, it'll be interesting to see what the Bears come out with everything that went on in Chicago this week. What's real, what's not. Yeah, sometimes that can wake a team up and kind of motivate them. I don't think the Chiefs will necessarily be in danger of losing this game, so to speak. I we haven't really seen Kansas City, especially at home, cover very often. So it'll be interesting to see if Chicago kind of finds some self motivation from what went on this week and just how they start this game. But I think the Chiefs will win. It's just seeing exactly how Chicago looks to open this game.
Yeah, no, and look, it could also be a disaster for Chicago too. So that's certainly up there as well. And from my fantasy team perspective, I'm hoping it's a disaster that heavily favors Travis Kelce, because I could use some points. I could use some points. So, anyways, Arizona hosting Dallas. Obviously, like we mentioned earlier, Dallas now dealing with a pretty devastating injury on defense. I don't think it matters much today against Arizona. But Dallas wasn't, even in the first 2 weeks, despite scoring as much as they did, their offense was, it was good, but it wasn't, you think 40-0, you think, oh, this offense is just, rolling. It's like, no, I think they've played smart, and
Mhm.
Mike McCarthy, I think, has done a really good job balancing pass and run, because, well, I think he recognizes that, well, if you put too much on Dak's shoulders, he's eventually going to make mistakes, and that's going to be a problem. Um, I think they'll be fine today against Arizona. It's more or less, how are they going to um, evolve moving forward? And like I said, I mean, it's nice to have Stephon Gilmore to fall back on, but 35 years old, he comes into Dallas thinking, okay, I'm gonna be second, I'm gonna be Robin to Trayvon Diggs Batman in the secondary. Now all of a sudden you have a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And I think he can handle it, because he's very much still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But it's a lot of risk on a NFL old player. So yeah, but I like Dallas this week.
Yeah, I like Dallas as well. I guess Arizona, they have surprised a little bit with their own pass rush. I don't know if they'll be able to do that against a stout offensive line like Dallas, but I think the areas that Arizona's at least been a little more competitive is kind of the last spots that I would have expected for a season that not a lot of people expected much. But Dallas is just kind of a different animal than what Washington or the Giants were. So I think it'll be interesting to see maybe what is a higher number of the sacks that Dallas gets in this game, or the points that the Cardinals score. Could be kind of a fun thing to watch. So I like the Cowboys quite a bit in this one. It'll just be interesting to see, like you said, yeah, how much Dak is kind of able to go out there, and how big of a leash he has. But I think the Cowboys should be fine in this game.
Next, we have the Raiders hosting Pittsburgh. We talked about Pittsburgh earlier, and kind of, obviously not living up to the quote unquote preseason hype. I like mm, I like the Raiders. I don't know. I almost on the fly switched. I don't know why. I just my gut was telling me something. Maybe Pittsburgh pulls this off, but no. I like the Raiders at home. It's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be a close, sloppy game, but I keep saying I do like Jimmy Garoppolo more than Derek Carr, so I feel like the Raiders might start eking out few more wins or at least be more competitive than they were a year ago. So, yeah, I'll take the Raiders.
I went with Pittsburgh. I don't really feel like I'm as confident in that one as I compared to what I thought I would be in this game. Kind of when the schedule came out, I don't see a lot of points in this one. I think it will be sloppy, like you said. I just think the biggest difference is I think Raiders defense is still kind of Max Crosby and nobody else. So I think just kind of that opening should give hopefully Kenny Pickett a little bit of room to work. I think this could be one of the games that also their running game could get going a little bit with Najee Harris or Jalen Warren, given the matchup on paper. So I like the Steelers maybe tighter than I would have expected originally, but Pittsburgh is where I'm going to go in this one.
All right, we mentioned it earlier. We have the Bucks hosting Philadelphia, and like I said, the they're going to be on honoring Rondé Barber, and this is the first of two Monday Night Football games, of course. So we'll have to wait till tomorrow to get to this. But I like Philadelphia in this one. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be close. I mean, I think the Bucks are a little bit better than I thought. Because again, I mean, Baker's not a pushover, and I think the most important thing is they've, again, like I mentioned earlier, have adjusted offensively and certainly are much better off these first couple weeks than they were last year. But I think Philadelphia, I think you're going to get yourself a pretty solid game. I don't think it's going to be a lot of offense because this Bucks defense is good. But I think the Eagles will win this one. So give me Philly, but I think we might be coming out of Monday night being pretty impressed with what we see from the Bucks.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add. I like the Eagles as well. I just think the defensive line. This is going to be a tough test. I think for this Bucks offensive line, and Baker Mayfield can run if he needs to a little bit, but he's certainly not going to be the fastest quarterback or most dynamic one that the Eagles will see. So I think just the Eagles defense, even though on the back end there's still some questions, with the changes they had there. I think this will be the biggest difference in this game, and I like the Eagles.
All right, last but not least, we have the Bengals hosting the Rams. I took the Bengals, but man, I I don't know if I would be surprised if they lost this game based on what we've seen the first 2 weeks from them. So I will take the Bengals. I don't have a lot of confidence in that pick right now, especially if Joe Burrow is not healthy. Um, yeah, so Bengals, but this could be a pretty devastating loss and one that could really not obviously end their season, but 0-3 is not a good place to be. So give me the Bengals, and they desperately need to win this game.
I guess my pick kind of depends on if Joe Burrow's going to play in this game or not. If I think if he plays, I'll go with the Bengals. Kind of interesting. Sean McVay and the Rams have never had a losing record after week 3. So with how competitive they've been, I don't think they were even really that bad against the Niners. I think there was a couple turnovers in that game that really made the difference. But yeah, I think this is a game I can see the Rams winning easily if Burrow's out. But yeah, I guess we'll just see what the injury report is. I know obviously the 0-2 starts a factor in Joe Burrow's kind of decision here in this game to play or not, or at least how much he really wants to push through it. But wouldn't surprise me if the Rams won this game and the Bengals are at least fully pressing the panic button at this point on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not pressing the panic button already, they definitely will be, and there's good reason to maybe start pressing the panic button. So, all right, that's gonna do it. We will be back, obviously, with the Studs and Duds podcast later in the week to recap this week 3. But we will be back next Sunday, of course, for our week 4 preview and everything like that. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. Enjoy the games today, and hopefully everything we said comes true, because then we'd be pretty smart. Let's put it that way. So thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.